Meeting to order. If we could just stand or say the Pledge of Allegiance, we can get going. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and
justice for all. I'm going to call the roll. I probably should have done that first. Lou?
Here.
Anita?
Here.
Megan?
Here.
Lorna?
Here.
Jenny?
Here.
Bill?
Here.
Tanner?
Here.
Okay, thank you very much. I just have just a couple, actually just one short comment, and that is in regard to to our December meeting. I think everyone received an email from Patrick today. We have discussed pushing up the December meeting to the 14th from a regular meeting date, and the reason for that is to discuss the progress and perhaps come to a decision on bringing Dyke Newell and Fisher Mitchell back to 100% in class. I think the reason to push the meeting up on Patrick's recommendation is obviously depending on the outcome of any vote that the board takes, it would give the parents and families involved a little bit extra time to accommodate the change in schedule. So we wanted to be mindful of timing on that. I hope everyone will be available on the 14th. It would be regular meeting date, and barring any unforeseen circumstances, we will be meeting together, but without an audit, without the public present. Okay. If that meeting date is problematic for anybody, either speak up now or let Patrick and Vita know, and we'll see what we can do to change that. The other thing I'd like to suggest is that we modify the agenda slightly, just to bring the public comment, which is on the agenda as item 3, before our discussion on winter sports. This is a special meeting, so our agenda is limited to the discussion on winter sports. Patrick is going to ask, they're not on the screen right now, but we're also going to talk about middle school sports as well. There's no decision on that at this point. And I've asked Patrick to give us an update, and I think Eric was on earlier. So Eric and Patrick to give us an update on co-curricular and extracurricular activities as well. So those will be the 3 things we'll discuss. The only action item would be the winter sports schedule and guidelines. Anything, Patrick, do you want to add at this point?
No, it's not a big deal. We had put the public comment after the presentation so that maybe it answers a question, but we can do it either way. So we can start with that, and then we may end up addressing any questions through the presentation. So yeah, but nothing else needed to be added.
Okay. Yeah. No, I didn't mention that to you earlier. I'm sorry, but when I noticed it, I just thought we'll take the comment before the discussion seemed appropriate. Damien said we have one person who has asked to address the board. So Damien, if you're able to connect with that person now, it would be appropriate to do so.
Hello.
Hi, this is Steve.
Hi, yes, this is Leslie.
Yep. Could you just state your name, Leslie, for the record, and then
Sure.
The board is all here, so we'll take your comment. So.
Okay, that sounds great. My name is Leslie Gallant, and I live in Woolwich, and I have a 6th grade student who will be attending WCS again starting in January. And to be honest with you, I signed up to make a public comment. I was counting on hearing everything that people were going to say so that I could ask further questions or to make a comment on what was discussed. And the reason I signed up for a public comment specifically tonight was because I noticed that the MPA winter sports schedules was on the agenda, and I was afraid that it was just going to mean for high school students. And I wanted to be sure to include middle school students in this discussion for sports and extracurricular activities. So I'm looking forward to the discussion. And I'm also looking forward over the next few months at meetings to hearing more middle school specific opportunities and updates from both middle schools for those students. And I'm excited to hear that middle school sports will be talked about.
Okay.
That's
Thank
all.
you very much. Thank you, Leslie.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye now. So you never can do this right, I guess. Either it happened before or after, but hopefully we'll be able to provide Leslie with some additional information on middle school sports and address her question or concern. But if we don't address it specifically enough, Leslie, then raise the comment to us through email. Okay, so item 3, MPA winter sports schedule and guidelines. This would potentially be an action item. Patrick, you want to?
Yeah, I think what we were thinking, if everybody's okay with this, is we would turn it over to Nate first. He would review the MPA guidance for really high school sports, and along with his recommendation. And then after Nate goes, give you an opportunity to ask questions. And then after that, Shane Hutchins, who's our Woolwich AD, will speak on behalf of Woolwich and BMS. Randy Hickson's on the call as well. And we were actually want to provide a recommendation of what we'd like to do at the middle level as well for athletics. And if you wanted to take again, this doesn't have to be a required board vote, but I would just assume, we talk about high school first, then middle school, and then, kind of take a vote after that, if that works for you. So Nate, are you out there?
I am.
Okay. You ready?
I am. Yes.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to share my screen with everybody. All right. Can everybody see that okay?
Yep.
All right. So this will be similar to what we did in the fall. I did trim down quite a bit of it, though, because a lot of it would have been repetitive for you. But I did think that it was important just to go over the specific guidelines that the MPA has provided for winter athletics. So that's where we're going to spend most of the time. This shouldn't take too long, but please do feel free to stop me along the way. So just a couple of things we're going to go over, just the general guidelines for winter that would encompass really all sports. The scheduled start dates for those sports right now for the high school, the sports themselves and the specific guidelines and changes and alterations to those sports in order to make them safe, and then just the general recommendations at the end on how to move forward. So general guidelines for all athletics for the winter is that no spectators will be allowed as mandated by the governor's executive order and the MPA. This is different than the fall, where the fall we were able to have 100 people outdoors, but in indoor gatherings under the governor's executive order, that's limited to 50 people right now. So certainly this could change, but as of right now, 50 is the limit for indoor gatherings, which really only includes players, coaches, officials, and game workers. So no spectators will be allowed. And then the other piece is that all players, coaches, and personnel must wear masks at all times, which is also a change from the fall. Of course, except for swimmers while they're in the pool. The swimmers are, however, expected to keep masks in waterproof bags while competing in the pool. And when they get out of the pool, they're to go towel off, retrieve their mask from their bag and then put it on, and then go back to their team area. So the scheduled start dates as of right now, Monday, December 7th, practices can start. This is an individual skills and drills layout. No tryouts this week. It's meant to really to be a week of general conditioning to try to get kids back into shape a little bit after the layoff from the fall. December 14th, tryouts can begin with inter-squad practices. So this is where you have more, one-on-one competition drills, whereas December 7th is just, individual type drills and activities. And then January 11th is the regional competition schedule that can start. Regional being, any team or any school within Saginaw County or any adjacent county that's not currently either yellow or red. Wrestling has been pushed back, though, to a scheduled start date of February 22nd. We'll get into wrestling a little bit, but that is the hope as of right now. So just for the individual sports and some of the changes and expectations, basketball is classified as a moderate risk sport. We're looking at a maximum of a 12-game schedule. Normally, it's an 18-game schedule for basketball. Games will be played regionally. And just some of the changes, throw in, official stands 6 feet from the player making a throw in. Free throws, the lead official stands on the end line and bounces the ball to the free thrower. All timeouts now will be 60 seconds. And teams do remain in the bench area during halftime rather than going down to the locker rooms. Jump balls are being eliminated. That will be a coin toss now. Hosts will have to have sanitizer at the scorer's table before the game and at halftime. Seats will be limited to the timer and the home scorer at the scorer's table, and those people must be 6 feet apart, and the table will have its own sanitizing stations. For competitive cheering, it's also classified as moderate risk. Right now, virtual meets are being considered. So for instance, Morse, we would do our own competition right here at Morse or at BMS. We would film that competition, and then we would send it off to a panel of judges, and they would score that. So the changes for cheering, stunt groups should stay together in their cohorts, refrain from mixing and matching bases and tops. 6 feet of distance must be maintained between those stunt groups at all times. Modify skills to ensure participants can wear masks, so nothing should be too overexerting. So that should be an appropriate thing to expect. Tosses remain in cohorts and should be limited to 1 to 2 per routine. Jumps and tumbling should be done independently, not with other students. Pyramids are no longer permitted. And then due to the voice projection, much like what we have for our chorus expectations, those are no longer permitted. Swimming. So swimming is also classified, or team swimming is classified as moderate risk. Individual swimming is actually classified as low risk, but it's Morse High School, so it's a team swimming event. Again, virtual meets are being considered. So for instance, Morris High School boys may swim on a Monday night, and then we have Lincoln Academy boys come in on Tuesday. And those, they would compete each individual night, and then those results would be merged together to form the meet and to determine scoring. Some of the expectations are no more than 3 swimmers per lane, and this is true for the Bath Y right now, no more than 3 swimmers per lane, so 24 kids in a pool at once. Swimmers should not be behind blocks waiting for events. Spacing athletes 6 feet apart on the deck whenever possible. Swimmers should not report to the heat until it's called. They should remain in their team area. And swimmers must return to their team bench after leaving the pool. That's where they would put their mask back on. Wrestling, as I mentioned in the beginning, this has been moved back largely in part because it's considered a high-risk sport. Season is currently scheduled to start on February 22nd. However, wrestlers are able to work out with coaches starting December 7th, and those workouts would consist more of general conditioning. It wouldn't be wrestling drills. There wouldn't be one-on-one drills. It'd be more running, weightlifting in the weight room, that sort of thing. And so some of the things to expect for wrestling, teams limited to 2 coaches and 1 manager. The benches should be on separate sides of the mat. Benches are wiped down between teams using the benches. Weigh-ins should be done in the gym in full uniform. Mats should be sanitized prior to each dual match. and wrestlers must sanitize hands prior to walking onto the mat. And one thing that I didn't list here, but there has been some preliminary discussion that we're looking at just dual matches this year. So it'd be Morse versus one other school. Generally speaking, we're looking at tri or quad matches where we invite 2 or 3 other schools here, but it would just be one other school coming in. For indoor track and field is classified both as low risk and moderate risk, depending on which event we're talking about. We currently don't have any facilities to use for indoor track. We would normally practice over at Bowdoin, but their facility is closed. Same can be said about Colby, Bates, University of Maine at Orono, USM, really anywhere where there's an indoor track right now, it's closed. I don't see this changing, but if it doesn't change, what we're looking to do is just hold practices that focus on skill development and conditioning. Our runners would go for a run. We could work on jumping techniques and throwing techniques in the pit, the girls' gym, and utilize some of those areas. So we certainly would have to get creative with indoor track. Some of the expectations, though, if we were to hold a season and we do have a facility to use, the mats must be cleaned between each individual jumping on the mat. The blocks must be sanitized between each heat and race. Schools can bring their own baton, but it must be disinfected between heats and races. And athletes can use their own throwing implements. If athletes don't have their own throwing implements, they must be sanitized between each use. And then we have ice hockey, which is classified currently as a moderate risk sport. We do have 2 boys that play ice hockey in a co-op agreement with Mount Ararat and Lisbon. That's all we have right now. There has been talk, maybe another 1 or 2 individuals, but they would basically be practicing over in Auburn at an ice rink over there, since Bowdoin is closed down right now. Expectations for ice hockey are maintaining physical distancing on penalty benches and player benches. And then students should keep mouth guards in the mouth during play and must wash or sanitize hands if it's taken out. And unified basketball, generally this is kind of an in-betweener sport where it runs really kind of in between the varsity basketball season and our spring season, generally in March. And that's actually, right now there is a proposal on the table to potentially move this back to the springtime, maybe a May date, just because it is considered a moderate risk sport, and the population of individuals who do play unified basketball are considered high risk, or a lot of them are considered high risk. So really looking to isolate this season and have it kind of stand independently. If we were to hold it in May, we could open doors and really get some ventilation in the gymnasium, which could help reduce risk. And the modifications for this sport are the similar for what we went over for varsity, JV, and freshman basketball. And so my recommendation is basically just based on what the MPA has put out, the Sports Medicine Advisory Committee, just like the fall, believes that strict adherence by schools and teams to these guidelines should provide a reasonably safe environment for a return to educational programming and school-based athletics for the winter. Just like the fall too, it's important to remember that all sports and activities do carry a potential risk of injury and illness. The risk of contracting COVID-19 illness is in addition to the underlying risk of a given sport or activity. It's also important to note that participation in any competitive sport or activity is strictly voluntary for both the schools and the individuals. So it is my recommendation, based on all the work that's gone into this on behalf of the MPA and all the various state agencies, that we do offer basketball, competitive cheer, swimming, wrestling to the extent that we can, and then begin that in February, ice hockey for those 2 boys, and any kind of indoor track season that we can get, and then the same for unified season. With that being said, I do appreciate your time, and certainly am available for any questions.
Mr. Chairman?
Okay, Bill,
Yeah, old man Perkins down here in Pittsburgh, an AD, sympathizing with Nate's unusual school year, really. I had a question for Nate. Who is responsible for enforcing the regulations, the protocols, once the games start? The officials? We know that our coaching staff we will hold responsible for keeping our kids within the rules. But once the schools the teams are on the court or wherever they're playing, do the officials have a role to play?
Yes, they do. The officials do have a role to play. They have made it clear that they are officiating a game. They're not there to officiate or to police the benches, to make sure that students are wearing masks and social distance and all that. That responsibility really falls on the coach, to myself to an extent, our athletic trainer. We all took part in policing that, so to speak, during the fall. But during the game play, the official, he needs to make sure that the masks are being properly worn, mouth guards aren't coming out of the mouth at all. And if they are, that they're being removed from the game so that they can properly sanitize.
Thanks, Nate.
You're welcome.
Yeah, Nate, my question was very similar to that. I noticed in the wrestling protocols that mats are cleaned or sanitized between matches. And is that something you do, or do we have a cleaning staff that when you say sanitize between matches, I assume between each competitive match, or are you talking about the entire match?
It would be between each competitive match. So historically in a regular wrestling season, they are sanitized anyways between teams going on the mats. But in this case, it would be between each competitive match. And the people who are in charge of that are the coach, but more times or more often it'd be our athletic trainer.
Okay.
So both of them would be responsible.
Yeah. Okay.
I would see it as a trainer's responsibility.
Okay. Any questions for Nate? Yep, Lorna.
Hi, thank you. Nate, I have a few questions, but I think most of them are pretty quick. One is, I can't recall, are you doing eligibility checks for winter sports?
Yes, we are.
Okay. Another is just to ask you quickly, what was student engagement when our boys had to be fully distanced for a few weeks when they were in quarantine? How would you characterize that?
As far as being engaged with school?
Yes, I'm sorry, with academics.
It was overall, I think it went pretty well, and Eric, feel free to chime in as well. But I know there were a couple of students who did struggle with that and who were struggling a little bit even prior to that. But I think overall, it went about as well as could be expected. Maybe Eric has a different perspective on that.
No, I would agree with you, Nate. There were some students who struggled, and I would say that we have students struggling in this model anyway, and that it followed similar lines. Obviously, it was a little exacerbated that they were out for 2 weeks straight, but overall, the team did okay, with some exceptions.
Thank you. The other question may fall on Patrick. And I know the CDC just yesterday tweaked the quarantine, the time of quarantine, whether it's 7 or 10 days. And are we going to be amending our guidelines, do you know, to align with that? Oh, I can't hear you.
You have to unmute, Patrick.
I don't know yet. I had a brief conversation with Dr. Hannah this morning, so we'll have more on that very soon.
Okay. And then on cheering, I noticed there's no pyramids, but my assumption, it sounds like there's still some other couples stunts. Is that right?
That's right. There's a coaches meeting for cheering on Sunday night that our coach is going to, that I've been invited to as well. So a lot of those details, there's a lot of questions about what can we do and can we not do with cheering right now. There's a lot of things to be determined. I think that will come out of that meeting on Sunday.
Okay. And then the last question is on water breaks. I know at school in the classroom, I don't know how it's going now, but in the beginning, that wasn't always real favorable for some kids when they couldn't drink when they wanted to. But it sounds like for sports, obviously they're going to need to take a drink. And has there been any discussion about how that will be handled?
Yep, we talked about that a little bit last night. We had a winter coaches meeting, and our athletic trainer did talk about that. There will be no water receptacle to use, so no jug really to use publicly. Kids will be expected to bring their own water bottle with their name on it. That's an expectation that the MPA has as well. So, and visitors will be required to bring their own water too. And as far as kids taking a drink, they'll be okay. That'll be permitted. They just need to be, socially distant from others while they remove their mask and take a drink of water.
Okay, thanks. That's all I had.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Nate? Nate, I just had one, just a general one. Did you find, and maybe you mentioned this already in the past, I don't know. Did you find our participation, the rates of participation of kids in sports in the fall season to be pretty much on target where you assumed it would be, given the restrictions and the changes in competition, or was participation off by a significant percent?
That's a good question, Steve. And actually, the answer is no. It wasn't really off. It was down a little bit because we didn't offer unified volleyball this fall, which we did last fall, which we had about 15 to 20 kids on that team. And we were down about 15 to 20 kids overall from last fall. So I do know for a fact that there were a few individuals who just chose not to participate this past fall due to potential risk. But overall, I was very pleasantly surprised that as many kids came out as what we saw.
Okay. So we have no reason to expect that the participation in winter sports will be any different from that experience.
Not necessarily. I have heard from a couple of coaches already and talking with a couple of students that there's a little bit of apprehension in having to wear a mask, especially to play basketball. I think that there's just some unknowns to that, not having done that before. But I encourage kids, sign up, try it out. At least having this week of general conditioning gives you an opportunity to play basketball in a mask and to see how that goes. And if it doesn't work for you, then that's okay.
Sure.
But overall, we've had signups all week long, and they're going pretty well so far.
Good. Jenny, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was just wondering, you mentioned something about adjacent communities. So if Brunswick's an adjacent community, but Cumberland County schools are in yellow, does that mean that we wouldn't be participating with anybody in Brunswick?
Correct.
Okay. And does that go, do we participate with Lincoln Academy?
Yes.
Okay, so they went remote recently, but does that matter? Like, it just matters at the day, right? Not just if they've been in remote mode, as long as the day of the competition. If they're not in remote mode, then we would participate with them.
Right. So if the idea would be to build a schedule based on everybody being able to participate, because it does change every Friday or most every Friday, depending on the county designations and what happens that day. So the schedule will be built expecting to play, but if a school is yellow or a county is yellow, then we'll just cancel those games and try to reschedule either within our own county or push the date to a later date when they can participate.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. We did run into that a little bit over the fall. A couple of times we had to just move some dates around just based on who was available.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Nate? If not, we did, Patrick did allude to this early, up front in the meeting. There is no requirement that we vote to authorize or accept the schedule going forward. We did take a vote for the fall schedule, so I recommended we do the same for winter. And if people are comfortable with that, I would take a motion that we approve the fall or the winter sports schedule And
Move approval of the winter sports schedule as presented by our athletic director.
we have a motion by Bill,
I'll second.
second by Megan. All in favor?
Aye. Oh,
I have to call the roll, I guess. Bill?
two.
Bill, yeah. Lorna?
Aye.
Tanner?
Aye.
Anita?
Aye.
Megan?
Aye.
Jenny, are you
Aye.
still? Yep, okay.
Aye.
Yep. Lou?
Aye.
And I think that's everybody. Okay, so the ayes have it, no opposed. Thanks a lot. I'm going to ask the question right now before I forget. If we're going to be faced with this again in the spring, is it an item that you want brought to the board? I'm just looking for a consensus, as opposed to, like I said,
Yes.
the Principals Association and school management says we don't really need to vote on this, but I think the discussion is good for the board, so we will continue this practice. Okay. Patrick, you want to introduce Sean and
Yeah, we have Shane Hutchins is our AD at Woolwich, and then we have Randy Hickson on the line as well. So, but Shane is just going to kind of give you a brief overview. It's not as extensive. What we're recommending is to really follow what Nate just reviewed for this, for a couple of sports at, one at Woolwich and then 2 sports at BMS. So I'll let Shane kind of do a general overview and see what questions you might have. Shane,
Thanks for having me, everybody. Yeah. So I'm recommending the following for middle school sports in RSU1. Woolwich Central School will be offering basketball for 1 girls team and 1 boys team. BMS will be offering 1 to 2 basketball teams for both boys and girls, depending on numbers, of course, as well as a competitive cheer team and a wrestling team. Bath Middle School and Woolwich for both accept the current MPA guidelines being used that Nate alluded to at the high school level to help us help guide us through what we're going to be doing safely. Basketball at both middle schools will be skills and drills for our students starting after the holiday break that January 4th and running through February 12th. So just getting kids in after school, more of an intramural style. For BMS, these skill sessions would be offered 4 days a week and would begin with just cohorts for the first week after the break, meaning after the first week is over, cohorts would begin, being mixed so the students could get 4 practices per week. If things are going well, the potential will be there for intra-squad scrimmages and perhaps a regional game or 2 versus, our Brunswicks or Mount Arats or a Woolwich, depending on where those schools are at that time. Woolwich will be offering the same thing. But we have more of a space issue at Woolwich because the gym is being used as a cafeteria, so it might look a little different. So depending on our numbers, we may keep our cohorts separate just based on numbers. So we'll have to check to see what that looks like. But if we do have a numbers issue with our space, then we'll open up a Wednesday and rotate and give the kids an extra session every other week as well to try to make it as equitable as we can. Cheerleading will be offered at BMS as a competitive cheer team. Nate alluded to virtual cheer meets. They'd follow those same guidelines. And wrestling at BMS will start after February break and go through April break. And this will just be practices and drills and conditioning at that level as well. So a lot of the stuff, same stuff Nate said, says we wouldn't really be focusing on the competitive games and the schedules, more keeping it more in-house for the first while and letting our kids, get the conditioning and the skills to continue to go better for the next level. So that was my recommendation for, if there's any questions, I'll gladly answer.
okay, thanks, Shane. Any questions for Shane or Randy? Yeah, Lorna?
Hi, thanks for that. This is really just an education on my part because I'm embarrassed to say when I saw the agenda, I thought MPA was only high school. So you don't have to operate middle school under PE guidelines anymore? I think that's where I got confused. I had that in my mind, but you guys can operate under the MPA.
Yeah, and we actually, middle school isn't really tied to one, and if I misspeak, Patrick or Nate, you can chime in, but we could, I know some schools within the bus line league are operating under the community sports guidelines. Some are following the MPA guidelines, some are following the PE guidelines. So I don't think we're specifically tied. We're not specifically tied to any one, entity. It's more or less kind of what we agree on, I think is best, for our building or, our structure. So
Were we following PE in fall or trying to? Is that
I
what
was, so in the fall, I was following PE guidelines outside for the fall. Yes, I was. Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. So, but we can do, okay. Well, that's good. That's good that we can do it.
At least I was at Woolwich. I'm not sure, Randy, you could chime in. I'm sure, what they were doing at BMS, but me being the PE teacher at Woolwich, it made it a little easier as I was the coach at the same time, so I was kind of familiar with that. And I had the space, to do that with the 14 feet and all that stuff outdoors and things like that. But, the space issues kind of will limit us, and
I think from a big picture standpoint, this is all new to us, in the fall.
Right.
And obviously the high school, you approved the high school going with the MPA guidelines. And then again, we did something a little different at BMS and Woolwich because we felt the need to learn from it. But now that we have this high school experience, I think we've had quite a bit of discussion about what we think is in the best interest. We've talked with Dr. Hanner about the mixing of the cohorts at the middle level, and the risk in that, but also the benefit in doing that. So, Randy, did you want to add anything?
I was going to say we followed basically the MPA and what the high school was doing. We started with the PE 14 feet apart. That just didn't seem to make sense outside doing what we were doing. So we went with more of the 6 feet, and it worked out pretty well.
And practices, will they be starting later in the day as they were in the fall generally?
So practice schedule for us would probably be an hour and 15-minute sessions with a half an hour in between to make sure everybody got out of there and got their belongings before the next team came in. Using just the back door, for as well, which, trying to keep out of the school as much as we can. No use of locker rooms, those types of things. But yeah, I'd be after school, probably looking at like a 3 to 4:15 and then like a 4:45 to 6 kind of time frame, depending on the schedule. Yeah.
And I think the middle school basketball would try to get into high school after the kids leave, potentially at 1:30. If we've got some coaches that are non-RSU1 employees who retired that can get in there. So we may be going 1:30 to and probably do an hour and 15 minutes as well. So probably we have 3 or 4 teams we need to get in there. So, until like 5 o'clock probably.
Okay. Well, great. Thank you.
So this what you're recommending here is really a step up in activity from what we saw in the fall, I guess.
I think our goal is that, Steve, is ultimate goal is to, by the end of the season, to be able to provide some type of competition in some manner. I think we're definitely going to start with cohorts and start out slowly because these will be newer coaches that haven't gone through the fall. Shane has, but some of my coaches haven't done that. So they're going to need to start out, I think, with just baby steps. And I'll be planning on being at quite a few of the practices.
Likewise. Yeah.
Yep. I think, Shane, you indicated that mid-February you would and Randy too, you take a look at what your experience has been up to that point. What kind of things will you be looking for in terms of making a decision to allow those inter-squad scrimmages and perhaps some competitive interaction between the kids?
For me at Woolwich, it would certainly be, we obviously have a big step coming next week with us going full time, and with K5. So, that's a big hurdle I kind of want to work with as well. But as long as everything's looking good in our school, for me, for Woolwich, probably be more branching out to Randy and maybe getting something at least with our RSU1 students, maybe an inter-squad, scrimmage would be my most comfortable. But it'd just be really just going on, seeing what cases are looking like for me and what status other schools are, at, and kind of making a call from there. Yeah.
Okay.
Similar. And Nate mentioned the Cumberland County. If we can't play Brunswick, that's okay. We would do. I have no problem just with playing Woolwich and letting the kids get to know each other that way as well.
Okay, great. Any questions for Shane or Randy on this. So this is just a report. You guys will come back to us in January or February as you get going, and let us know how it's going. So excellent. Excellent.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Patrick?
No, I just want to thank you guys for being here. I appreciate it. Appreciate the time you're putting in.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, so if we could just get a quick update on co and extracurricular, I think that might wrap up the meeting for tonight.
Yeah, I can jump in and give an update on how we're doing at Morse. I'd say that most of our activities have gotten off to a good start. Similar to academics and classes, it's modified and not necessarily, something that we would choose if we weren't in the scenario that we're in. But I can run down through some examples of some clubs that we are running. Our Interact Club, which is a service-oriented club associated with Rotary, is doing mostly in person using the split cohort groups, and they've gotten underway with a lot of their work. Similarly, Green Club is underway. Mostly using a virtual setting, though, Google Meets, with some special events that they do in person. Either early on it was under the tent or on a Wednesday, with plans to increase that type of activity. Our SCLC, which is our Morse's kind of unique version of student council, that is completely online currently with their meetings, and then the activities they've modified as well that they need to do, but the meetings themselves are online. Similar situation with National Honor Society, with some meeting online, but also doing either holiday fundraisers or food drives or whatnot, with that in-person piece on each of the cohort days. Our drama club actually just started today, the after school drama club. So it's split within cohorts as sort of an in-person style, with the ability to also do online if they need to. Our fall play, we did do in person on the front lawn. I think we've talked about that in a board meeting before. And it went quite well, very modified from what we would normally do in the Montgomery Theater, but it did go well, and it was a nice dose of normalcy really for us to have that. Mohiba, I think most people probably on the call were able to watch Mohiba from the comfort of their home this year. We did have a tremendous amount of people watch through either social media or on the YouTube channel itself. And I think it went really well. And our alumni really came out to help us out with that. That was excellent. And the students did a great job. Civil rights and safety, civil rights team and safe group, also using Google Meet so they can have both cohort teams together. Math team is in person on a lot of these, on a lot of their practices, and then, able to do some things remote as well. And debate is met originally in person, just some meetings, but are mostly doing things virtually with Larry Bartlett. So some ones that we haven't started, there's some question marks on them. I think the biggest question mark would be musical. I don't know how we will do anything like that, but for right now, we've kind of just tabled that. Our competitive clubs like Ocean Bowl, High School Quiz Show, we're waiting to see what moves the larger competition takes, and then we'll go from there. I'm pretty confident about High School Quiz Show. Ocean Bowl, I think there was still some questions around, but there's some possibilities. And our one act play, which direction we move for that is still up in the air. Also intramural sports. Mostly we do those inside really, floor hockey and whatnot. And we haven't moved forward with that. So that's a general overview of what we're up to right now with Co-Curricular.
Thanks, Eric. Any questions of Eric? I'm glad that I am glad that so much activity has been restarted, even in a modified way. It engages the kids and brings them together in a social slash competitive environment, which is good. So, Lorna, you had a question?
Yeah, just quick, Eric, also, I was glad to see the ski club seems to be gearing up again too, and it seems like it's becoming really popular. So whatever can be done there sounds great.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. Nate could probably chime in on that, and Patrick, who have been both involved. We're excited about that, and especially if there's a limit to winter sports in any way. Looking at ways to get the kids outside. I think ski club was great getting it off the ground last year. You know, it's a pastime that's near and dear to my heart, and I think that it would be great to get more students involved in that. So I know the Bath Rec for all ages are trying for that as well. So we've even brainstormed some other more outing club type events that we could do. You know, maybe we could do some snowshoeing, Nordic skiing, potentially, if the interest is there. We had one faculty member even talk about doing an ice fishing derby with the students or something like that, which would be really fun. So all very conversational point right now, but good stuff.
You get a lot of signups for the ice fishing, I'm sure. That sounds great. Any other questions for Eric?
I've got a lot of old ice fishing equipment I'd be happy to donate. Traps and augers and things like that. Or not traps, but the flags and stuff. Be happy if anyone could be of use of those. Eric, you mentioned about the broadcasting of some events. And so I guess I should have asked Nate, are we broadcasting our sports that can't be attended? Like basketball and things like that? Are those getting broadcast?
Yes, we are. So we experimented with that a little bit during the fall to varying levels of success. We use Facebook Live, we use YouTube, and we use Bath Community Television kind of as our 3 platforms. So I learned a lot about streaming over the fall. This is all new to me. So we're looking to hone in on that a little bit and improve that a little bit for the winter. But yes, we will for the winter.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Great. Thanks, Jay. Any further questions for Eric, Nate, Shane, or Randy? No? If not, Patrick, do you have anything else? No? Okay, so thank you very much for accommodating this meeting. Remember, you'll get the agenda. We're going to switch that meeting to December 14th for the regular meeting. And glad to have you back, Bill.
Yeah, thank you. Would it be an order for me to move adjournment? Haven't had a chance to do that for a while.
Okay. Bill, do we have a motion to adjourn from Bill? Do we have a second? By someone? Second by someone? Okay, we're going to give this a second. Megan gives us another second. We got dual seconds. So I think we got to take a roll. I'm sorry to say. Lou?
Yeah, aye.
I guess Lou's already left. Lou's okay.
No, I'm here. Aye.
Yep. Anita?
Aye.
Megan?
Aye.
Lorna?
Aye.
Jenny?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
And Tanner?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you very much. We'll see you on the 14th in person.
Stay safe and healthy, everybody.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.